If you thought that was a jet on a runway, look again. That's a monster that was hushed too soon. This is the untold story of Ford's banned 351 Cleveland engine. In the late 1960s, Ford already had a workhorse, the Windsor small block V8. But competition was heating up fast. Chevrolet was pushing its big blocks, Chrysler had the Hemi, and NASCAR demanded engines that could dominate at high RPMs without giving up durability. Ford knew the Windsor wasn't enough. They needed something sharper, more aggressive, and purpose-built for the muscle era. Enter the 351 Cleveland. Unlike the Windsor, which was designed for versatility in everyday vehicles, the Cleveland was born for performance. Its most obvious difference was in the cylinder heads, massive ports and canted valves that allowed far better airflow, letting the engine breathe at higher revs. This design made it perfect for both drag strips and oval tracks, where raw horsepower meant the difference between winning and fading. Ford's engineers developed it to bridge the gap, an engine that could live on the street but unleash fury in racing. It debuted in 1970, just as the muscle car wars were reaching their peak. The Cleveland wasn't built to be ordinary. It was built to make a statement. Ford's bold answer to rivals, proof that Dearborn could build an engine as exotic and as brutal as anything from Detroit. And within months, that statement echoed across drag strips and speedways nationwide. On paper, the 351 Cleveland looked like a standard small block. In reality, it was a wolf in wolf's clothing. Displacing 351 cubic inches, 5.8 liters, the Cleveland quickly earned a reputation for punching far above its weight class. The base 2-barrel version already delivered solid performance, but the real monster was the 4-barrel. With its enormous intake ports, canted valves, and free-breathing design, it produced up to 300 to 330 horsepower in factory trim, numbers that rivaled much larger engines. Torque was equally impressive, giving it explosive acceleration off the line. What really set the Cleveland apart was how overbuilt it was. The block and bottom end were strong enough to handle far more than stock power levels, making it a dream for racers and tuners. Even under extreme stress, the engine seemed eager for more. Ford dropped the Cleveland into Mustangs, Torinos, and even Mercury Cougars, instantly giving these cars reputations as street terrors. The engine's ability to scream at high RPMs while staying brutally reliable made it unlike anything else in the muscle car world. This was so much more than just another V8. It was a declaration of war under the hood, and every race, every burnout, every victory furthered its legend. But the real storm came when the Cleveland roared onto the track.
Just blow you away down the straightaway.
It's car number 21, David Pearson, moving in on Richard Petty. Guns him down.
You see, the 351 Cleveland wasn't just fast on paper. It was practically devastating in competition, which is why almost immediately it found its way into NASCAR, where Ford teams seized the advantage of its high-revving design and bulletproof durability. With those huge ports and canted valves, the engine thrived at full throttle, giving Ford racers an edge on long ovals where sustained top-end power meant victory. In the early 1970s, Cleveland's powered cars to multiple NASCAR wins, including legendary performances by drivers like Richard Petty and Cale Yarborough. On the drag strip, the story was much the same. Tuners discovered the engine could take massive amounts of modification without braking, making it a secret weapon for quarter-mile dominance. Chevrolet and Mopar suddenly had a problem. Their engines were heavier, less efficient, and not as eager to rev. The Cleveland made Ford a serious threat, challenging the dominance of Chevy's small blocks and Chrysler's Hemi. Records piled up quickly and fans noticed. The Cleveland's ability to outrun larger engines at both the strip and the speedway proved it was no fluke. It was a revolution. But revolutions rarely go unchallenged. The Cleveland's success drew attention not just from competitors, but from regulators. Sadly, dominance on the track always attracts scrutiny, and eventually, resistance followed. The 351 Cleveland's rapid success forced racing officials to take notice. By the early 1970s, sanctioning bodies began imposing restrictions, arguing that Ford's exotic cylinder head design gave an unfair advantage. NASCAR in particular limited the use of high-performance versions, effectively kneecapping teams that relied on the Cleveland screaming top-end power. The too powerful narrative wasn't just about competition, it was about politics. Racing regulations often mirrored the broader pressure of the era. And in the 1970s, those pressures were immense. Emission standards were tightening, fuel economy was becoming a national concern, and the oil crisis of 1973 made gas-guzzling engines a political target. The Cleveland, with its oversized ports and thirst for high-octane fuel, suddenly looked like the wrong engine at the wrong time. Production versions were detuned, compression ratios dropped, and by the mid-1970s, the once feared powerhouse was neutered into mediocrity. By 1974, Ford had effectively withdrawn the Cleveland from the US market, though limited versions survived overseas. What had been designed to dominate became another casualty of regulation and crisis. Enthusiasts saw it not as a failure, but as a victim of circumstance, proof that sometimes greatness isn't ended by rivals, but by red tape. Because true legends don't vanish, they evolve, inspiring generations long after production. Even though the 351 Cleveland's time in showrooms and sanctioned racing was brief, its reputation only grew stronger in the decades that followed. Among muscle car enthusiasts, the engine became a symbol of what Ford could achieve when engineering wasn't shackled by compromise. Collectors prize Cleveland-powered Mustangs, Torinos, and Cougars for their rarity and raw capability. A stock 4-barrel Cleveland is already formidable, but the real magic lies in its potential. Builders discovered the block could handle astonishing amounts of horsepower with the right modifications, making it a staple in drag racing and custom builds long after Ford discontinued it in the United States. To this day, aftermarket support remains strong, a testament to its enduring appeal. Beyond its collector and tuning value, the Cleveland influenced Ford's future. The lessons learned in airflow dynamics and high RPM durability carried into later engines, from the Boss 302 revivals to modular V8s. Its DNA lives on, even in Ford's modern performance programs. What began as a response to rivals became a benchmark for ingenuity. To enthusiasts, the Cleveland isn't just another engine. It's a piece of forbidden history, a story of brilliance cut short too soon, and perhaps that's why its legend resonates. It reminds gearheads that sometimes the most memorable machines are the ones that burn the brightest, not the longest. But if the engine was too good for its own time, doesn't that make it timeless? Let us know what you think.